Hey guys, again, we are here for another talk, and today I'm very excited. We are meeting Eric, who's been studying snow environments for very long. So, welcome, Eric.
Thanks. Well, I'm glad to be here.
And I has been talking with you a few times in the past, and I'm very excited of what you will tell us today because it's so much that we don't know. Like, I'm a skier, I love skiing, and I know nothing about the snow. I know nothing. I know it's water, but that's kind of all of it. So first of all, can you tell us a bit your background? Like, how did you come to science, and what has you been studying for the last past years?
Okay. Well, my background, I started as a kid because all the scientists, they remained children. And when I was in the lawn and I was looking at insects, trying to eat them or to dismantle them and to understand them. And then little by little, I started to think that maybe I could make a job out of it and try to dissect the life and to understand it. So I made the studies that you expect for such a career and went to university and got really passionate scientist for everything that is not moving anymore. So it's not insect anymore, but all the life which is still, that cannot move, the plants. They cannot run like us. They cannot go and eat. They cannot hide from the sun. If you're in outside on the grass and you under the sun, you will be sunburnt. But the grass stays there. It stays still and it doesn't burn. And same for the algae. They cannot escape their environment, whereas us as animals we do. So it's like you look at the plants, you look at the algae. They have an incredible response to the environment, which is very aggressive, and that they cannot escape. When it's cold, we go to the shade. We go hiding to a warm place. But the algae and the plants, they stay there. They have to cope with everything. So everything is inside their cells, and this is what's fascinating for me.
So you've been studying these environments for quite a long time. Actually, you are working in Grenoble, in the University of Grenoble, and you are studying the algae in snow. That's something that it really surprised me, that it's algae on the snow, and we think that snow it's only water. But can you tell us what we can find on the snow? What we can find inside this white environment?
Yes, it's just surprising, and it's still surprising for the scientists, and I guess it's even more surprising for the public. When you go to the ocean and when you go and you swim, you take the water in the ocean and you see it's transparent. So it could be just like water, but you know from what you have learned at school, you know from what you have seen on TV broadcast. That inside you have lots of organisms. You have the phytoplankton, the zooplankton. You have it's extreme life there, which is minute, it's full of life. But you know that. So when you go to the ocean, you know that you have life. So if you have the oil from your car, you're not going to throw it into the ocean. If you do that, you know that you're killing some organisms. Now, if you go to the mountain, everywhere where you can see snow or ice, maybe you have the feeling that this is just snow or ice, that it's just water. But in fact, inside you have the same. You have organisms that develop, and they develop in a very extreme environment. It's like another planet. Imagine that you would have to survive in the ice. How can you do that? If you're a polar bear, or if you're a cave bear, you know that you will accumulate fat and you will try to survive, but you will have an incredible demand of energy you will need to eat. How is it when you're a small organism like an algae? You need to survive. You're very small. You need to survive in this environment. So yes, it's quite a new field of research. It's been known for a while, but now it's becoming more accessible because we can study it with new technologies. We can use really high resolution microscopes. But the other thing is that these algae, they become more and more visible because of global warming. Because of global warming, they spread more and more. It's called a bloom. Maybe you have heard of a bloom. In the ocean you have blooms. Maybe you have heard of the green tides, like green algae tides on the seashore. You have lots of algae that multiply and they become invasive, and you have lots of them on the sand. You also have sargasso algae that develop in the Caribbean islands or on the coast of Brazil. You also have blooms in the polar areas. You have blooms in the lakes and they become completely green, and you have blooms in the snow and the snow becomes red like blood. And the surface is very, very large.
Yeah, that's something I have noticed, especially in the spring, that when I go skiing, I see this kind of reddish snow, and I always thought that was like sand, like last a few weeks ago, that it was these clouds of sand from the Sahara, and I thought that this like reddish snow was sand, but when I was talking with you, I realized that no, that was algae. That's amazing that it's such a large surface of snow that is populated with algae, and probably it's in some places in the world, like we've seen that it's more and more of this reddish snow in the spring. So what are those that makes a change on on climate? Does it affect some way, or how is climate affecting these populations of algae and other microorganisms in the snow?
Yes, it's a very important question that you're asking. You know that with the climate change, with the global warming, there is a gas that increases in the atmosphere. This gas is called CO2. And CO2 reaches little by little higher and higher levels. CO2 is what is captured by the plants and the algae. They feed with CO2. So you could imagine that, okay, there is a global warming, we have more CO2, so it's beneficial for these organisms. The algae, they grow more, the plants, they grow more. They can take a benefit out of it. But in fact, they grow far too much. They really, it's too much for them. So that's why the blooms are more and more frequent, and that's why in the snow you have more and more of this red color. So if you go skiing, you will see the sand. It will give this brownish color, and if you train your eyes, you will make the difference between the sand and between the red algae. And the red algae, they are uneven at the surface of the snow. Now, when the algae are on the snow, they stain the snow, and the snow becomes warmer. It's like if you're dressed in white, there is a strong reflection of the sunlight, and if you're dressed in black, you will become warmer because it absorbs the energy of the sun. So it's the same with the snow. The snow is white, so it stays cold, but as soon as it is stained, it keeps the energy of the light, and it becomes warmer. So it melts faster. So you have the global warming that makes CO2 higher. CO2 higher makes algae stronger. More algae makes the snow stained, and it accelerates the melting of the snow. And in climate science, this is called a positive feedback. It's not positive actually. It's a negative effect. But this is this amplification of its acceleration. And unfortunately, this is something very sad, but the increase of CO2 in the atmosphere makes this acceleration process. And on top of it, when the snow melts, it increases CO2 again. So it's really acceleration process. So we have an accelerator of global warming and environmental change due to this mechanism.
Yes, so it's sad that it's not only the CO2 that we produce in the atmosphere that it's making global warming, but all these processes, they are doing this positive feedback, so it's accelerating. The snow is melting faster, which it means that it's less the albedo, that it's what you are telling, and then it's cooling slower the planet, so it's warming faster. So it's just like adding and adding, accelerating these processes. And going back to the snow, it's what more do we find in the snow? You've been talking about algae. It's also I have been reading like in some glaciers too. It's some kind of microorganism, bacteria that they are also in the snow.
Yes, in fact, it's studied in some other places in the world. It's studied in the Alps, of course, in Europe, but also in the Arctic and Antarctica. And some studies have been performed by some Russians, and they have shown that with photosynthesis, the algae, they feed with CO2. They simply need CO2 and sun to grow. Just like your plant, when you simply need to put it in the sun and put some water on it. They grow. So they come first. They are pioneers. They come first on the environment. Something which is interesting, if you take the point of view of the algae, is that it's very positive for them. They can develop. And there is also an area that becomes interesting for them, is the one that is opened by the retreat of glaciers. The glaciers, they melt and they open a free area, and there settle the algae. So the algae, they come first, and then comes the grazers. So what is a grazer for an alga? It's not a sheep. It's a minute bacteria, or it's a minute fungi, and these microorganisms, they come and they can feed of what's there. That's why the algae, or the plants, or the photosynthetic organisms that feed with CO2, they make it's the entry point of CO2 in life. They are eaten by the others. That's why they are called the primary producers. And then you have the secondary producers, and so you have the grazers, and then the carnivorous organisms. So in this area, if you take the point of view for us, it's very sad because it's a changing environment. If you take the point of view of the algae, it's an opportunity to develop and to explore a new world. And for a scientist like me, it's at the same time it's sad to see the world changing because of us, and at the same time it's amazing. It's always a beauty for me to see the organisms developing in a new system and the dynamics of change. So we loved the mountain of yesterday. We love the mountain of today. We need now to understand what will be this environment in the future. So we can be sad, but we can also try to see how the life is now taking advantage of this.
So what you are telling is that actually we are seeing growth of new species that they are developing because global warming is creating some environments that they didn't exist before because they were like just covered by snow or by ice, and now these like virgin environments are populated by these first organisms that they are building life. So other species will take over probably in the future. So at the same time, like we are, it's creating life, but probably it means that the planet is in a transitional period.
Yes, definitely. And what's new compared to previous changes at this scale is that it comes very fast. So to adapt, the living organisms, they have to have strategies. If you're an alga, your division is every 2 days. So every 2 days you have a new generation. So if it comes fast, maybe in the course of the divisions and of the reproduction, you will have some new alga that fits better with the new environment. If you take us the generation time, we become we can reproduce ourselves when we are about 20 years old or 30 years old. If you're a tree, it's much longer. It can be 50 years. A tree can. The trees are really the fragile organisms in this process. So the forest. If we want to keep a memory of something, we need to keep the memory of the forests, because they will have to cope with strong changes. This is everywhere. This is not only in the mountain. If you see the south of Spain, for instance, you have trees that suffer a lot, and they have difficulties to adjust to the new climate. It's the same also in the Alps. We can see that the trees they will really suffer strongly and maybe not be able to adapt. So the process will be much slower. There will be a transition time and then a new equilibrium. And probably the forests, they will adjust during the new equilibrium rather than along the process time. This being said, for the algae, it's good for them because they can divide and go quickly to a new equilibrium for them.
Yes, so as I understood, like on this transitional period, like the ones that they will suffer the most is the trees, because they are the slower to adapt, to reproduce. But to make this new equilibrium, should we do something like as you as a scientist, me as an athlete, what should I care about? What are my actions that should I take to be able to arrive to this new equilibrium and still survive?
That's a big, more difficult question. We need to stop the process, but the process has been initiated and it's ongoing. So we need to stop it. Can we stop it? If we want to have an impact, we should really stop the industry today and stop. Just like a big COVID period that we should repeat every 2 years, and the industry should stop, and maybe we will reverse the dynamics. So what can we do at our scale? It's a difficult question. We need at our scale to commit. Preservation, it will be difficult. So the scientists, they try to go into the conservation of species. For instance, in our lab, we try to identify the unknown species and to conserve them, and maybe try to see if their habitat will not be spoiled. So we need to do our best to protect everything that is wild. We need to protect every environment. Now, at the same time, we need to accept that it's going to change. We should not go in the direction of the dramatic change. We should try to fight. But at the same time, as responsible humans, we need to accept that it's our fault, that it's in the process of changing. So the question is, what can we do as people in the mountain when we go to the mountain? Have respect for life. Have respect for when we see the snow. Snow is not a void territory. Snow is a home for organisms. We don't see them, but it's their home. When we go there, we are visitors. We are invited. We can we can enjoy it, we can see how beautiful it is, and actually we should be aware that it's beautiful. But at the same time, it's very difficult to see what we can do to protect it. Protect maybe is not destroy it. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's the question, the answer that you were expecting.
No, yeah, sure. Like that's how it is. Is the reality. It's we cannot preserve the world that we have today. It will be a different one, but as you said, like we should take serious action in all the levels. Probably, like as you mentioned, industry and it goes to system changes to be able to not keep the world that we have today, because that's probably, as you mentioned, a transition that it has started, and it's not that we will go back to what was before, but we can make an equilibrium so we are able to survive probably as a species, and to keep most of the species in the world. And you mentioned about conservation, and I've read that about like in the last 50 years, like 60% of the biodiversity of the planet has been lost. So to preserve or to conserve what is left, it's important to be able to rebuild all this new equilibrium probably.
Yes, for the conservation, before we were, when I was a child, it was not the question of global warming. It was the question of species that were disappearing from the surface of the earth. So there were attempts to make some sanctuaries for endangered species, and in these sanctuaries, actually, we were putting the beautiful animals, the elephants, the pandas, the beautiful ones, not the frogs. I'm a French, but you see the amphibians. They don't look attractive for most people, although they have to live in ponds, and sometimes they have to live in very endangered areas, from which we remove the water because we manage everything. Humans, we manage everything. And then we become, as human, we think we need to protect the elephants and all that. So it's like we are becoming the masters of the garden. The earth is our garden. And although we consider it wilderness, it's a natural park, it's a national park, still it's like a garden that we have decided. My view is that we should accept to step backward and accept to live with the animals, to live with the others, and to let them be intruders in our environment, and accept that, they're going to live with us, and we will have to accept that they do not behave the way we like. We're not going to put them on the side in a natural park. So, for instance, in the mountain, when you go there, some areas are natural parks, and the wilderness is protected, and some others are not. And we should not behave differently in both. We should keep in mind that everywhere where we are, the few animals, the few organisms that are there, we need to respect them somehow. We should not consider that a road should be clean because you have, or it looks dirty because you have grasses. Or you see, you hear that often. I need to clean up this place. I need to remove these organisms that do not look the way I would like it to be. For instance, the algae, they are everywhere. So they make the water turn a little greenish sometimes. It means that water is alive. What's our first reaction when we see that the water is green? We try to clean it. We simply kill them. So maybe we could survive without cleaning, without maybe we could remove concrete. Maybe we could accept to have nature with us. Maybe it will be good for us.
That's something very interesting, that we live in a world where we try to have the human place and the natural place, and we should accept that we are also part of the nature, and it's not our place and their place, but it's the place of everyone, and we should have more this to accept that we have not a propriety, like we don't own a land, we don't own a place, but we share it with all the other species. So that's very interesting, and also, like as you mentioned in the beginning, not only where we always think like the forest or like the ocean, but everywhere, in the glaciers, in the snow, in the cities, it's different organisms. So thank you very much, Eric, for this talk. I think everybody here, all the athletes, we have been enjoying a lot, and we will follow a bit more the research. We can put some links on that, and thank you very much for talking with us.
Thank you very much, Kilian. It was a pleasure.